Welcome to Attention Now podcast, where we talk to successful business people to provide quality content and business mindset on the path on how to succeed. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Dave. Appreciate it.
It's great to see you. Great to see you. Hey, I'm not wearing a Marine Corps cap today. Usually when I talk to you, I'm using a cap, so a little bit different today. Let me start off with a quick introduction, and if you could elaborate if I miss anything on that, that would be great. Today's guest is Paul Hylenski. Paul is a Marine entrepreneur, author, speaker, and CEO of Vet Mentor AI. I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about that, a little bit later in the podcast. But it's a great platform. Anything else you wanted to add, Paul? Sounds good.
Yeah.
And you're a speaker, TEDx speaker, right? So I guess I got that. So
Yeah. I've done 3 TEDx's so far. I got my number 4th coming up in March.
nice. That's awesome. Congratulations. I've watched a couple of them. You do a great job.
Thank
Uh,
you.
all right. So let's start off with the Marine Corps. You served in the Marine Corps. How many years were you in, Paul?
Yeah, so I was in for 8 years total. I joined in 1999 thinking nothing's going on.
Right.
And, I was going to go in for 4 years, get my education, and then get out. And, well, everyone knows how that worked. And so ended up serving multiple duty stations, did a lot of great things. I was a CH-53 Echo crew chief and mechanic. So, loved my service in the Marine Corps. But when I got out, I was, broken like a lot of military members when they get out. And the military has a great, a great tradition of trying to steer you away from sick call while you're actually in the military.
Right. Exactly.
So I was like a lot of veterans that did not have this, extensive history and extensive documentation of anything that was wrong with me. And then, over the course of a few years after I got out, I tried to apply for disability benefits like most veterans do. And I kept getting denied, time and time again. And eventually I had a choice of either I go to a lawyer and try to get my claim approved, or I just quit. And I just quit. And, that
No,
was my adventure, and that's kind of what started the company of Vet Mentor AI.
yeah. When we get to that one, hopefully we could share the screen and you could share the
Yeah,
platform. 'Cause I've seen the platform; it's fantastic, and I think a lot of veterans just quit. I just started my journey a couple years ago, and still haven't made progress. But I signed up for Vet Mentor AI, so we're going through that process right now, and hopefully I could be a testimony here shortly.
amazing.
So did you decide to join? When did you first decide to join the Marine Corps? Was it out of
Right
school,
out of
high
high
school?
school.
Right out of
Yeah,
high
right
school.
out of high school. And
Okay.
so like, the Marine Corps, the few, the proud, and so I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna go do something that very few people can do. And it was, as most military members will say, it was some of the best times of my life, some of the most challenging too. And I learned a lot. And that was where I really started my leadership. And, as I entered out of the military into the civilian world, I found out how different leadership is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, in the military, as Marines, we have to lead the entire person, right? And so, like in business and in the civilian world, you lead that person for the 8 hours a day you're there. And when they go home, that's on them. I mean, they even tell you in business, you keep your home at home and your business at business. But
Right.
in the military, it's totally different, right? You have to lead the entire person because that entire person, if they got a Dear John letter outside of work hours, could impact you when you're in battle or if you're doing any kind of exercise, right? And so that's where I learned to lead by, really focusing on the whole person.
Right.
And, Simon Sinek says it a lot, but there's a flawed dynamic in leadership in the civilian world. And so in like the military, they give you medals and ribbons and awards for sacrificing yourself for everyone else, right?
Right.
And that's
Exactly.
why the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, the Medal of Honor. But in business, they give you, bonuses and raises for sacrificing everyone around you for the good of you.
Right.
And
Exactly.
So it's this
Yeah,
flawed dynamic that I
it's a
really
little bit
tried to
backwards.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely backwards. And so, yeah, that was the biggest shock to me coming out of the military. And part of the reason that got me into writing books and, doing TED Talks, because I wanted to change leadership and make it something that you could be proud of, right? Show businesses that you can get profits and you can care about the total person and do the same thing. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It could actually work together.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial and it's a long-term play when you care and try to help that person, right? And not think of
Yep.
them just as a number. It's like you're not just a number. Let's get rid of them. Let's replace them with somebody else. Don't worry, there's plenty of people. But if you could develop that person, coach that person, and help that person, that's going to go a long way. When you were in the Marine Corps, was there any mission that left any kind of impact on you in your life or career?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest that it probably the biggest thing that left an impact to me was watching people struggle with like mental health,
Okay,
right? And that was very common, and that's another driving factor of the reason why I started the company, because in the military, and for anyone who served in your audience, as predominantly people that serve, and so you're forced almost away from sick call. You're forced almost away from, admitting faults or admitting weaknesses, right?
well, we're Marines. We don't have weaknesses,
Exactly,
right?
right.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
exactly it. And that's
Right,
what we're taught.
right,
And so what happens is when you deny that and when you push that inside, that's where you get a lot of people that they can't struggle and they feel like there's nowhere to go. They can't
right,
talk to any of their friends about it because they don't want to seem weak. They can't get the help that they need. And so that is one of the things that as I got older and as I got past the military, I started to realize that, the 22 veterans a day that are choosing out of all the options in the world to end their life, it's not because they're bad people. It's not because they're totally broken all the time. It's because they feel like they have no one to go to and they're in a system that doesn't care about them. We
right,
send them to war, and when they come back from war, we make them turn into lawyers in order to try to get any kind of money from the government. And then most of the time, 75% of the time, we reject them. Now
right,
imagine being on your last dollar and you're trying to apply for benefits from the government after you served honorably in a war or even during peacetime and you damage yourself and now all of a sudden you have that stress and it's too much for veterans. And for me, that was the lasting impact. I mean, I had a veteran who was really close to me commit suicide during our service together. And part of the platform in the platform, which we'll talk about and show later, but I created a suicidal ideation detector, a
nice.
SID. Well, his name was Sid. And
Wow.
so I named this tool, this AI tool, after my friend, and because he didn't have another way out. And honestly, we weren't trained on what to look for or how to deal with situations like that. And that was one of the things that probably stuck out the most with me because I think a fair amount of these 22 veterans a day, if we could get them the help that they deserve and we could literally give them an option where they feel like they have hope, they might not take that decision. And I think we could change the world with that.
Yeah, and that's awesome that you named it Sid after after your friend. That's incredible. Kind of honoring him. But I think a lot of people that are going to get their VA or trying to get their VA benefits and they get denied, they probably just like you said, they quit, right? Because usually the government says no, you're done, and they don't realize, hey, this is an uphill battle. It's not just one step. So if you get denied, there's many different reasons, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But there's many reasons, and luckily Paul's platform will eliminate some of those reasons before you submit your claim. So because how much is it? 70, 80% of the claims get denied?
Yeah, so 75% of the
75.
current claims get denied.
Right.
And it's not that the VA doesn't want to give veterans money. The money's already appropriated.
Just the system's not set up
It's the
right.
system, right?
Right.
And so we
Right.
we train our veterans and we train our military members to be warriors, right? To have specific jobs.
Right.
But then they have to get out and they have to become lawyers. And the average education of the standard, military enlisted member is a high school diploma.
Right.
Right. And so when you add this in, we're setting them up for failure because they're in this complex system that they don't understand.
Right.
And so what happens is they either get frustrated and quit, like you said, or they have to go hire somebody who charges exorbitant amount of money because they have the knowledge that the veteran doesn't, and they take advantage of it. And some of the practices that are coming up now where they're not only taking a large percentage of the back pay, they're actually taking percentages of the percentage you get. And so this new practice is completely incredibly wrong and is one of the reasons why my platform will destroy that practice.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you brought up a good point, right? As Marines, we're trained to do X, Y, Z, and we have standard operating procedures, SOPs. And then when you get out, you're trying to do this. It's like, all right, how? I mean, I didn't even know how to start filing a claim 2 years ago. It's like, where do I go? What do I do to get started, right? So we'll talk about that here in few seconds again. So transitioning out of the military can be tough. Did you face any struggles with PTSD, TBI at all?
PTSD or TBI, I face struggles which a lot of veterans do with finding a job.
Well, there
Right.
you
When I
go.
got out of the military, here I had certain limitations. I was trying to find a job that I could get out of the military. And then so when you start to look at that transition, I had a TAPS class, right? In my TAPS class, they had, people from the government come, people from the Secret Service come. They had like these people, but nobody actually said, here's what you need to do to file your claim, and here's what you need to do in order to make sure that you have all the information for your claim. And I probably was like, thousands of other veterans. I was so intent on getting out at the time that I was, where I was made my mind up. My last exam, the last thing I was going to do was say, hey, I'm broken and I got this problem, all these problems, and then them keep me in to do some kind of medical evaluation. So I did exactly what most other veterans do and say, hey, no, I'm good. I'm good. And at the time, I was 26, 27 years old, right? So I'm good. But as you start to age, all of that degradation that happened for those years, and the more that you serve, the more degradation that happens, they start to catch up. And that's where, for me, that was a huge struggle.
Right. That's I think I didn't even have a TAPS. I didn't even think that TAPS existed when I came out. So that's at least you got something. How did you develop such a resilient and focused outlook on life for succeeding?
Think that was from the military slash civilian world, right? So
Okay.
when I got out of the military, I went into a business as like a frontline leader. I
Okay.
had the worst manager you would ever find in the world. The guy was worse than any gunnery sergeant I ever had in the Marine Corps, treated people like they were lower than anything. And so that person actually I turned that into inspiration where I said, I'm going to do things different. He was actually the person that said, I was too boring to ever write a book that anybody would read.
Oh,
So my
wow.
first book, I actually wrote about him and all of the things that he did to everyone. I didn't name him
Wow.
by name or anything.
Right, right.
And so that became my inspiration. And I ended up he had made comments about you'll never reduce quality defects. I ended up studying, researching, and writing a book called Error Proofing Humans that the FAA actually was using to help train people.
Oh my
And
gosh,
so
that's awesome.
so, these things that happened, it was like, for me, that was resilience. Every time somebody said, hey, you're never going to do that, I had somebody tell me, you're never going to do a TED Talk. So many people try to do a TED Talk and don't. And I'll be honest, it took me 152 applications in order to get my first TEDx. And
Wow.
I tried so hard and so long. It was 3+ years of applying every single Saturday. I'd go on and apply, and I would just constantly apply, and I would refine my idea. I would refine my talk. And so finally, I got to see. It was a funny story. I applied for this one TEDx event in California.
Okay.
And so I applied at like 7 a.m. in the morning, right? And so it was around 9 a.m., which is 3, 4 hours different. I can't remember whether it was daylight savings time. But the guy from California called my phone and said, I want to talk to the idiot who just applied for a closed TEDx event. And I said, well, sir, I'm not an idiot, but I know I applied for a closed event. And he
Right.
said, we just had the event. Why did you apply? And I said, because I wanted to be #1 on your list for next year. And I
Nice.
said, I wanted to be the first application. He said, well, maybe you're not an idiot. Maybe you're the most resilient person I've ever met. And
Wow.
so at the end of that conversation, he actually gave me the grading rubric. He said, I can't watch you struggle anymore. You have a heart of a lion. I'm going to give you the grading rubric so you can refine your talk. Well,
Wow.
after that, I started getting hit after hit after hit. And it was that perseverance that got me to that point, because there were so many times I wanted to quit. And it was just like building the platform that I built. I had to learn from scratch how to code in multiple different computer languages in order to build the platform. It took me 6 months to learn how to code, enough to build an AI platform.
That's amazing. Holy cow. That is definitely resilience. And I think that's very encouraging for our audience that's listening, right? If you're struggling with something, just keep working at it. And how did you wind up getting better at speaking?
So
Because obviously,
the biggest thing was doing it. And so I do this exercise when
okay.
I'm doing trainings or whatever. What I'll do is in the beginning of like normally a talk that I have on communication, I'll bring the most scared person. I ask, who's deathly afraid of public speaking, right? Somebody in the crowd raises their hand. I
Right.
make them come up with me.
I'm
And so
surprised.
like
I'm
we'll
surprised they raised
start.
their hand.
Yeah, so they raise their hand and they come up, and the first time you can see how they're nervous and they're kind of kept to themselves and everything,
Right.
right? And so throughout the maybe hour or two class that I'm teaching, I'll have them come up 5 and 6 more times
Oh,
to
wow.
do little things, right? Maybe write something on a board, answer a question in front of everybody. But by that seventh or eighth time, that person who is deathly afraid comes up, they're confident, they're sitting there laughing in
Their
front of
demeanor
everybody.
changes. Wow.
Yes. And so like everyone in that room watched that person literally transform. So for me, that was my transformation as well. I was scared. The first time, and if you look at my first TED talk, it was very like kind of it was a little bit robotic, right? And maybe only I can notice, but I was nervous, right?
Right.
And then when I did my third one, it was like I was a professional. I was up there and I'm talking and I'm having fun. I'm engaging the audience. And it was because I had done so many repetitions that it just became normal. So the biggest thing for your audience is if you're afraid to do something or you're nervous to do something, do it and do it 50 times.
Right.
Right. And
Exactly.
just keep practicing until you're the point where it's just second nature.
Kind of like riding a bike, right? You
Exactly.
don't learn the first time, but you keep going. You may fall once or twice, but keep going. And I just recently looked at one of my first couple of podcasts. It's like those were horrible. It's like, what were you doing? So I definitely could relate with that. So appreciate that. What keeps you motivated every day and striving for excellence?
So I think for me, it's the impact that I'm making.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now, I'm making such an impact to people's lives where they were hopeless. People went from being denied multiple times and having no way out other than screwing their life up by hiring a lawyer that's going to take all their money. And then they
And
use
what do they take? Like 30 or 40%?
so they typically take 30 or
Wow.
40%, but the new gig that these companies are doing is they'll take the 30 or 40% from your back pay. And let's say you get a rating of 30%, they want 10% every month.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and so now they're taking a percentage of your percentage in perpetuity.
So ongoing?
Yes. And
What?
so a lot of these companies, some of them are actually doing years. So where you pay them for the first 5 years. But there are some companies out there, and this is why there's a lot of legislation coming up about these claim sharks, because these companies have no regulation. They can
That's
charge
terrible.
whatever they want.
Wow. You told me a story in the past that you had somebody that was on your platform, that went on your platform that almost hired an attorney. Can you elaborate or tell
Yeah.
us that story?
So we actually had and I'm in the Baltimore, Ellicott City area, and we had a local news station do a entire story on our platform. And so we had a veteran, Army veteran, honorably served in Iraq, right? An amazing guy, amazing guy. So he kept applying for benefits and they kept denying him. And they kept saying, you don't have this illness, you don't have this disability. And he's looking at his medical records, he's
Look right
looking
in
at his
front of me.
denial claim, and he's like, what is going on? And
Right.
so he used our platform, and he went to a lawyer, and they said, we will charge you, we'll fix this, we'll charge you 30%, and we want a percentage of what you get for 5 years.
That's
Right. So every
awful.
month they would take a percentage out of his whatever percent. And
Wow.
so he used our platform, which was a flat fee of $149. And they used our platform and it said the birth dates don't match. Well, then he went to start studying why. And then he asked the platform, here's my denial claim. Here's what it says. The platform, because it's an interactive avatar, actually found out and diagnosed that they were using another person's. And so they both had the same name, but they were using the other person's medical record to diagnose his claim.
How did the platform tie those together?
So when it goes over all of the pertinent information, it's going
Okay.
to it asks you about your denial. It even tells you what section to read. And what it was noticing was he had all the medical documentation for his information. But on his denial, some of the personal identification information was incorrect. Well, they didn't pick it up. And so the VA was assuming that this other guy's who has the same name, his medical records were tied to this guy's. And so
Wow.
what happened was when he was saying, hey, I got a knee injury, they were saying you never sustained a knee injury. And he says, I literally have my form and my medical records.
And they were
How
looking
did
at
I
their
not do
records.
this?
Yeah.
And it was so crazy. So he thought so much of us that he even went on the news to tell them about the platform.
Wow. And his claim got approved, obviously.
100% approved, all
Wow.
back pay from money
Wow.
originally. I mean, the guy made out amazingly. He even came back to us and said, I got all this money. Are you sure that it's only like he couldn't believe that we charged one flat fee that was $150? And I was like, I don't want anything else from you. I'm glad you got your stuff.
That's
Like
part of
that's
our
the whole
service,
point.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the other incredible part is the pricing, right? So I think you talked a little bit about this already, but as far as transitioning into technology and AI, that was just basically a need that you had, right?
Yeah, it was a need that I had. And then I did what every other Marine would do. Once I got my claim approved from the software, I went to all my Marine Corps friends. And when I started getting all of them approved, then I went to people that I knew maybe on LinkedIn or that I had known from military services that were in other branches. And then, then we turned it into a company. And I did what I thought was right, and I stand by it. And I literally took the cheapest prices of anyone else and I slashed them by 90%.
Wow.
And so that's why our platform, we have two different pricing models, right? There's an all-inclusive model that gets you access to all of the state-of-the-art avatars and everything. And that's only $149, right? So most veterans can afford that. And you get your
That's
claim.
less than 1 hour of an attorney meeting with you.
Exactly. And then for the veterans who can't afford that, we have a smaller option, which is a $19.99 monthly subscription. So that way the veteran can do piece by piece by piece.
Okay.
So maybe in month one, you optimize your claim. Month two, you actually get your documents and everything. And so it gives you a limited use to the platform. But what we found was the veterans actually stayed for the entire life cycle.
Wow.
So the platform allows you to actually, and we'll show some of it during the podcast, but it allows you to optimize your claim. It grades your claim. It'll tell you, hey, Dave, your claim's not good enough to submit. Here's what you need to do. Step 1, 2, 3 to fix it. It'll create documents for you. And then the avatars allow you to practice your C&P exam and give you feedback on it. It allows you to have a virtual service officer. So we call it a virtual veterans officer, but it is trained on every veteran disability, every veteran benefit. You can ask it any question you would ever want to ask a VSO, and it's trained more than any VSO in the world because it's trained on everything.
So this will work for the knee person that's looking to get benefits, or if you have a certain rating and you want to increase your rating as well, correct?
Yep. And it also
Okay.
worked for family members, right? I mean, this
So
you could go and say,
veterans, widows, right?
yep.
Yep.
You could say, hey, my husband just passed away. He was 60% rated. What veteran benefits am I eligible for? Right. And then, like you brought up a great point, you could say, I'm, let's say, 80% rated, and now I have migraines or this disability. How do I apply?
Okay.
Right. And it'll walk you through, okay, did you get a current diagnosis? Do you have a nexus to service or disability? Do you have a personal statement? And then it'll actually walk you through the process to apply.
Got it. Got it. All right. I think we're almost close to the sharing part, but so let's say I'm a brand new person starting, trying to get to my benefits. What is the first step I do? Traditionally, the traditional way, and then also now with Vet Mentor AI. Okay, if you could give me both examples.
So traditional way is you would find a veteran organization, right, that's available to you. You would try to schedule an appointment with a VSO, which the typical wait times for a VSO right now are between 8 and 12 weeks.
And how do people find VSOs?
So they can find VSOs right online, right through these veteran organizations. Most veteran organizations have a VSO, or they can go to VA-related websites and stuff and look up VSOs. A lot of state benefits, they have VSOs where they actually try to drive you to. But like I said, the typical wait time is 8 to 12 weeks for a VSO. Then once you get your initial appointment, they're going to ask you for all the information and then send you away to go get whatever documents you need. So then you might wait another 8 to 12 weeks to get another appointment once you're done getting your documents, right? And then go back to submit your claim. And so that life cycle can happen 2 to 3 times depending on the complexity of your claim. So that's the world now. The world with Vet Mentor AI is you log into the website and instantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you have access to a virtual veterans officer where you can start that conversation right away. And I'll show you it, but the AI avatar will walk you through everything. It'll tell you exactly what to do. And then you're going to go to our claim optimizer where you put all your information in and it grades your claim. It tells you if it's even ready to submit. And if it's not ready to submit, exactly what to do. And it'll even tell you, hey, Dave, you're available for this secondary claim, and here's the CFR regulations to show that you're available. And then, we have a Nexus Statement Generator where you can actually create a Nexus statement that is scraped from the internet. And so it takes your specific medical conditions and then it scrapes the internet for any medical journals or studies, and it writes the letter from your doctor to the VA. So all you have to do is copy that, put it on a Word doc, and take it to your doctor, and they'll sign it. And we do personal statements, a simple generator. It writes it exactly like the CFR requires. And probably the coup de grace, or the best part of the platform, is our denied claims assistant. Okay. So our denied claims assistant will actually teach you why the VA denied your claim. It'll identify VA errors like it did for the one veteran. And then it will give you a customized strategy on how to get your claim reapproved and actually approved. So that has the power to eradicate claim sharks, because you don't need a lawyer. You don't need a claim shark, because this avatar will walk you through.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that some people say, hey, this could be like, this might be a claim shark, but I think for $150, it's definitely not a claim chart. All right.
Yeah,
So
no, and that's part of our strategy longer term is to where we're partnering with, and that's what we're doing now. We're partnering with veteran organizations, partnering with the states, and we'd eventually like to partner with the federal government so that every veteran, this is free. Like
yeah.
picture a world in the not too distant future where you can walk in, and as long as you're a veteran, you can walk into any veteran organization throughout the United States, and there's a Vet Mentor AI platform there for you. And that platform will walk you through how to get your benefits.
So
And that's possible.
that's possible, 100%. I hope that gets approved down the road. So right now, after I put all that information in, I print out what I need. What do I do with that? Do I submit it to the VA?
Yeah, so it's two different ways. So we actually have a 526 EZ optimizer. So once you print out your stuff and it says, hey, you're good to go, right? You're good to go to submit. You click the optimizer button and it actually answers the majority of the questions that you need for your 526 form, which is the disability application. And it rewords it and optimizes the wording so that it's written like the CFR requires.
Okay.
And so you have two options at that point. We do not, I got to clarify, we do not submit your claim. I don't
That's
want to
what I wanted
submit
to
your
get.
claim.
That's what I wanted
Yep.
to get to, right?
I do not submit claims. The platform does not submit claims. I don't want anything to do with submitting your claim. I want to teach the veterans and I want to prepare them so they can submit their own or print these forms out and give them to their accredited VSO. And that way their VSO doesn't even need more than one appointment with them. They can literally walk into the VSO with all of the information they need, prepared, answered all of the questions, and imagine a world where the VSOs don't have to fish through paperwork, don't have to ask the basic questions. They literally just get given a packet of information and they're hand jamming that veteran stuff to help them out. The VSOs could literally 10x their efficiency.
Talk about saving time, saving money for the veteran, saving time and money for the VSOs and the VA, right? That's
Yep.
a huge, because that's for the report that they're getting and the what's the form number? I forgot. The eight.
Yeah, 526
The
EZ.
520 for the 526 form, that could be 2 or 3 appointments. Right?
Exactly.
So
Right.
now you could do it in the comfort of your home, spit it out in a couple weeks, make an appointment with the VSO or submit it yourself,
Yeah.
and you're way ahead of the game, right? It's like
Yep.
it's eliminating so much redundancy. This is awesome.
Yeah,
So
and we find with most of our veterans, Dave, that most of the veterans are so well educated on what they have to do after using the platform that they can actually submit it themselves. And
nice.
they save themselves time, they save themselves. I mean, we've had testimonials where people actually will be on the va.gov website and they'll have our avatar in the background. And if they don't understand something on the website, they just ask the avatar. So the avatar is literally walking them through how to fill out the claim.
That's
And
awesome.
it's based, because the training is the entirety of the internet and the VA website and everything. It's showing them how to do it, which is amazing.
Let's take a look at the platform, Paul, if we can.
Yeah. Okay, I'll share.
Oh, hopefully it works. I've never shared while recording, but I think it'll work.
Yeah. No, that's great. I'm going to share the sound too. And that way.
Yeah, and if you could walk us through, like I'm brand new, what's the first step?
So if you're brand new, this is what the platform looks like. This is the admin part, so we won't go with that. But the average person's going to start right at the virtual veterans. And so this is our virtual veterans officer. And so you would start there. And so that's what we'll do during this. So I'm going to power him up. And so what I'll do is I'll just start with a simple interaction. And I'm going to assume that I'm a veteran with tinnitus and I now have migraines, really common, right? And so I want to talk to him.
Perfect.
And so it takes him a minute, or not even a minute, but a few seconds to power up. And so if you're a user, you're going to see this.
Hello, I'm Grant. I'm the Vet Mentor AI Virtual Veterans Officer. I'm trained in everything related to veteran disabilities and benefits. How can I help you?
I need to know how to file my claim for migraines. I currently have tinnitus and I'm covered for 10%.
Thank you for your service, and I appreciate your patience as I provide you with the most accurate information. First, let's start with your consent. Do you consent to use AI to analyze your medical information and release it to the VetMentor AI system? This will allow me to provide tailored guidance aligned with VA regulations.
Yes, I do.
Great, thank you for that. Now, let's proceed. Are you filing a new claim for your migraines, or are you seeking an increase in your current rating?
This would be a new claim.
Thank you for clarifying. Let's take this step by step to ensure everything is covered for your claim. First, we need to ensure you have a medical diagnosis for your migraines. Do you already have this diagnosis from a licensed provider?
Yes, I do.
That's excellent to hear. Next, you'll need to establish a link between your migraines and your military service. This involves obtaining a Nexus letter from your healthcare provider that states your migraines are at least as likely as not connected to your military service. Do you need assistance with obtaining that Nexus letter?
I think I will need it because it hurts every time my head hurts, and because normally when my ears ring, my head hurts. So I'm not sure if it's connected to my tinnitus.
I understand how challenging this can be, especially when dealing with pain and the potential connections between conditions. It's possible that your migraines could be secondary to your tinnitus, which is important to explore. For the Nexus letter, you can ask your healthcare provider to address both the migraines and how they might relate to your tinnitus. I can guide you to a resource that helps generate a Nexus letter. Would you like to proceed with that?
So I'll stop there, Dave. And then, so that's what the veteran would do first. So they would start to get all the information, and you can see how, this, we call our virtual veterans officer Grant. And so you can see how Grant is going to walk you through. He's going to, the more information you give him, the better the service will be, just like a standard virtual service officer. And so that's the first thing that the person would do. The second is they would come to this claim optimization report.
Okay.
And so this claim optimization report, what we're going to do is I'm just going to put some information in here. So I'm just going to say Paul Doe, Paul at example.com. And so I'm just going to put some random information here. This simulates the VA form.
Okay.
So what this does is this actually takes the information that the VA is going to require you to have anyway. But we're just going to put some dates in here. And so the veteran would go in and they would fill out this to the best of their ability. And it's very simple. And we got an honorable. Was I ever deployed? Let's just say Iraq and Afghanistan. Do I have a service-connected thing? So we're going to say tinnitus. And we're going to use the same example that I now have migraines, right? And that way it's just a common thing. So again, you're going to, you put in, are you claiming any toxic exposures? Did you serve under a different name? Are there any periods of service? So it's all basic information. Then we get to, are there any new disabilities? So let's say for this, I'm claiming migraines. And then did I sustain any injuries? Let's just say no. We're gonna put no, none. Have I sought medical treatment? So for this, we're gonna say I was diagnosed with migraines and I was prescribed medicine. And then are there any conditions that affect my ability to work? Sure, my migraines do. Have I ever filed a disability claim? So what this is doing is checking for potentials, additional potentials. Let's just say I went to, Sarasota, Florida. I went to a CPOC there. Am I currently employed? So, yep, I'm a manager. Do I have any dependents? Let's just say I have a wife and kids. And what this is doing for this actually builds your other documents. So for this, let's say I have depression, I have tinnitus, and let's say I have back or neck pain. And then what we do is we say, yep, we acknowledge for the platform. And so now what it's doing is the AI is actually running the claim optimizer form. Now, for the audience, you all saw just how basic information that I put in there. So when you see what this spits out, the more detailed you are about your conditions, about your diagnosis, about the medical treatment that you gave, the more specific this will actually be for you. And so this is going through and it's reading the entirety of the CFR regulations. It's reading the M21 manual, which is the VA rating manual. And it's additionally reading the Veteran Benefits Manual, which is where you can actually find all of the required benefits for a veteran.
Hey, Paul,
so,
sorry to
yes,
interrupt you. So basically, this is what a VSO would do, a lawyer would do, or a claim shark would do.
yes.
And
And so this is
you have
doing
that
it
all
all
built in
for
there,
you.
so all that same information is going to get spit out, which is incredible. Okay.
I'm just going to run it for a second. It timed out.
No problem. No problem. So Grant, the AI is going to give you the information you need, right? Oh,
Yep.
there it is. Okay. And then you put it in.
So
Okay.
there it popped up.
All right.
And so again, this thing is on a, this is actually verifying the information that it spits out and then verifies it back to you, right? So it's making sure there's no hallucinations with the AI model. And so you can see in here where medical records and diagnosis. So it talks about my tinnitus. It talks about my migraines. I've been prescribed medication. Then it talks about nexus statements. Medical records document the link between tinnitus and service. And then where it says, I didn't get proper medical documentation. So a lack of proper medical documentation for my migraines to secondary to tinnitus. Because I didn't tell it I had a nexus. I didn't tell it that I had any documentation from a doctor. So it was able to pick that up just from the small amount of information that we gave.
That's incredible.
And so you can see where it starts to build an impact on the daily life. That is important for our personal statement. And then you can see here where it talks about the secondary service and where it talks about my gaps, right? So I had a previous denial in this example for migraines, which means I need more supportive evidence. That's why I was denied. And so here is where it talks about exactly what to do. I need to obtain comprehensive medical documentation. So it talks about exactly talking how the frequency, duration, and severity of my migraines. I need those three things because that's what the CFR requires. Then I have to get a nexus statement and I have to get lay statements. And so when we get down to the end here, this is one of the most important parts. It says that if I file right now, my approval likelihood is a 50% approval.
Which
so
would not get approved, right?
I would not get approved. There is a 50% chance I would not get approved. And so what you were looking for, and we've had 73 veterans so far that get an 8, 9, or 10, and 100% of them who have gotten an 8, 9, or 10 have been approved. So out of our total performance on the platform, we are at an 86% acceptance rate first time submittal. So the national average is a 75% rejection rate first time submittal. Our average is an 86% success rate.
Approval, basically.
Approval.
Wow.
So this is the claims optimization report. So it says I need a nexus statement and a lay statement. So what we'll do is we'll go right to the Nexus Statement Generator, and with a one click of a button.
You know, Paul, I just saw online somebody was charging, I think, $350 or $500 for a Nexus Statement Generator.
Yeah.
Just last night. It's like, oh man, I got to talk about that on the podcast today.
It's crazy, right? And so what this does is this actually takes my information and it scrapes the entirety of the internet and it writes me a Nexus statement. And what you can see here is it even cites the CFR regulations that prove my disability. And
Hey,
so
Paul,
here,
sorry, let me
yeah,
backtrack. For the people that don't know what a Nexus statement is, can you tell them what that is?
yes. So there's basically 3 requirements that you need in order to get your claim approved, right? And so the first one is a current diagnosis, and then a nexus to service. And when they say nexus, it means a link to service or another disability. And so what a nexus statement does is it's a medical documentation from your doctor. It has to be from a certified medical professional. And what it does is it says, hey, your migraines in this example are tied to your military service through the tinnitus. Or let's say my back hurts. That medical statement says that it is more likely than not that your back pain is tied to your military service, right? So it's the nexus, it's the connection. Right. That is required, or they won't approve your disability. Most personal doctors will not write a nexus statement for you for a couple of reasons.
And the doctor needs to sign this too, right?
The doctor needs to sign it, right?
That's the other important part. Right?
That's the important thing. And so they won't write your nexus statement, which is why people have to go to these farms where they do have these kind of corrupt doctors writing nexus statements. Wow. And so what happens, the reason why is that your doctor doesn't have time to go look up military studies and journals about your disability. And most of the time, they are taking a legal risk writing a document to the VA that says, I'm sure that this is connected to this. How can they know?
Right.
Right? They don't know. So what our statement generator does is it does a few things. It scrapes the entirety of the internet and actually finds medical documentation and studies, excuse me, that tie your disability to another disability or your military service. So you can see here at the bottom of the generator, here is medical journals that even APA cited. So your doctor can literally Google these and they'll find these journal studies. And so in this, it talks about, in this Lipton study, it talks that auditory stress from tinnitus can trigger migraine episodes. There is medical journals and studies. And then, so the beauty part of this is you have all of your documentation and diagnosis, you have all of the medical journals, and then we actually had a lawyer write the AI model for this. Nice. So the VA only requires a more than 50% likelihood that your condition is connected to your service or another condition. So there's certain wording that has to be in a nexus statement. And the bare minimum that the VA will require, with also leaving a legal buffer for the doctor, is these words right here. It is more likely than not. And so that is a greater than 50% chance because it's more likely than not. And so if this is written that it is directly related to a service, specifically a secondary condition, based on the medical evidence. So he's seeing the veteran, he has the medical evidence and the rationale provided. So this doctor's not making this decision half cocked.
Yeah,
they're
making the doctor doesn't want to put a signature on something they're not familiar with, right?
Exactly. Right. And so this gives the doctors a legal buffer and it gives them all the information that they need.
And this is all included in the 1999 or the 150.
Yes. This is this is in both of the platforms.
So people that are paying $500 for a Nexus letter, they could just use this for 150 and get it spit out.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
They could use it for $19.99 and get it. If that's all they need, I want them to go on for $20.
Holy cow.
And so the next thing this does is this actually generates a personal statement for you. So a personal statement or a buddy or lay statement is so critical because there's, again, the trifecta of what you need is a current medical diagnosis, a nexus to your military service or a nexus to another disability, and literal proof or some adaptive proof that it impacts your work or life. And so what this does is this gives you the burden of doubt, which is all a veteran needs per the VA regulation, is the burden of doubt. And so this talks about the debilitating nature of my tinnitus has greatly affected the quality of my life, often leaving me feeling isolated and frustrated. And so this talks about, as a manager, my job requires consistent focus and clear communication. So this outlines how it impacts your work and life, because you put in your job and your family. So it takes everything that it knows about migraines and any other details you put and how it impacts your life. And so this this form right here, you can copy and paste into a VA form 21-4138, which is the personal buddy statement, and you can submit it to the VA.
That's
and
incredible.
This is all the burden of doubt proof that they need. So then let's say, yeah.
How long has the platform been around, Paul?
So we've been in business for about a year total.
Okay.
And so we've been, really pushing on helping veterans for the last 6 months. And we've had over 200 veterans use the platform. And like I said, 86% of them got their benefits the first time. And the vast majority of the people came back. And they the reason why they didn't get their claim approved was because they were a 5, a 4, or a 6 on the scale, and they submitted it anyway. And so the beauty part of the platform is, let's say you're in a rush and you want to chance it, which I don't advise to, but then let's say you get denied because you didn't have all the documentation. The denied claims assistant will actually walk you through how to refile your claim. So it's a full-scale service. I suggest that every user really focus on watching and seeing what it tells you to do and get your claim to an 8, 9, or 10. Like I said, I can't stress it enough. 100% of the users we've had so far have gotten their claim approved using that 8, 9, or 10 grading scale.
How many veterans have used the platform so far?
So we're at 227 veterans so far.
Wow, that's incredible.
So,
and can people use this like for, I could see someone using this for their non-for-profit or companies or investors that may be looking? Is that something that's an option as well?
I mean, we do licensing to nonprofits, right? Our wheelhouse is veteran organizations.
Okay.
Because as partnering with us, you actually get to apply for a lot of the IT and technology-based grants, right? So one of the things we're finding out is these nonprofits that are partnering with us, this opens up another arm for them to get grants because they're utilizing technology. And by partnering with us, we're now currently looking at partnering with local state governments to try to get them to actually put these in, or put this platform in veteran organizations. And then one of the things you brought up, every company in the world, especially the large companies, are trying to hire and retain veterans. And what better perk can you give a veteran than they have every benefit available to them on this platform? They can go on this platform and ask about any veteran. They want to buy a house. We could ask Grant how to buy a house. I'm 70% disabled. How do I buy a house? What am I eligible for? What kind of benefits are my kids eligible for education or whatever, right? And it'll walk you through everything.
Wow. And before I forget, Paul has offered a 5% discount to our audience. So use the code ATTENTION when you're signing up, and you'll get that 5% discount. And any investors, anything, let him know that you saw this demonstration on our podcast as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. And are you okay if I go over the C&P exam real quick?
Yes, go ahead. We got to wrap up pretty soon, but let's do it.
One of the best things that a veteran has to do, or one of the most important parts of a veteran's disability claim, is the C&P examination. This is the medical exam that they send you for.
What's that stand for, Paul?
Compensation and pension exam.
Thank you.
Yep. And so a lot of veterans go in there and it matters what you say. How you say it and what you say matters to the rating that you're eligible for. And so what I built was these interactive avatars that actually simulate and allow the veteran to practice their C&P exam. So I'm going to start one up and assume that I have migraines again, right?
Okay.
And it's going to walk me through a DBQ, a disability benefits questionnaire. And these are standard questionnaires that the C&P examiners have to ask. And that actually goes into your rating. And so depending on how you answer, and we'll only go a little bit in this just so that your audience gets an experience of it. But at the end of the questionnaire, these avatars will actually grade you on your performance, and they will tell you how you did and what you should have said and what you should have been more specific about. And so that way, if you use this, and we've had veterans go to these C&P exams, and the examiner has told them, and they've given us testimonials, you knew the questions before we even asked them, right?
That's
And so
awesome. That's getting the answers to the test. That's awesome.
Yes. And a lot of veterans write down the answers and the feedback that this system gives them. They go in and you're allowed to bring notes.
Oh,
You're
there you
allowed to
go.
bring documentation and notes to a C&P exam. So
Let's
I
see it.
invite people
Let's
to
see
do
it.
that.
Let's see it.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we'll pick a male doctor, but you can choose a male or a female. And they're going to be the same kind of style where this is it's going to spool up, takes a couple seconds to spool up, and then he's going to engage in a conversation with me.
And the
So
C&P, the actual C&P exam is done by the VA, and that's done in person or
it
via
could be
Zoom?
in person or through Zoom.
Zoom. Okay.
Yep.
Hello, welcome to your CP exam.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm Dr. Smith, your AI avatar for this compensation and pension exam. I'm here to assist you in reviewing your disability claim. Before we begin, I need to ask for your consent to share your personal information and medical history with the AI system. Do I have your permission to proceed?
Yes, you do.
Thank you for your consent. Let's get started. What disability are you here to get reviewed today?
I have migraines.
Thank you for sharing that. I will ask you some questions related to your migraines to gather the necessary information for the review. Let's begin with your general medical history. 1. Can you describe the frequency of your migraine attacks? For instance, how often do they occur in a week or month?
It's about 3 to 4 times per week.
Thank you for that information. 2. How long does each migraine episode typically last?
Anywhere from 2 to 4 hours.
Thank you for sharing that. 3. Can you describe the severity of your migraines on a scale of mild to moderate or severe? How do they affect your daily activities?
They're very severe, most likely an 8 out of 10.
I appreciate your honesty. 4. During a migraine attack, do you experience any specific symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, sensitivity to light or sound, or aura? Please describe any that apply.
I have sensitivity to light and also auditory.
Thank you for that information. 5. Have you sought any treatment?
So I'm going to stop him, Dave, but he'll walk through, and what he's actually doing is the reason why he's saying 1, 2 is because he is trained on the DBQ.
Okay.
So what the veterans do is they actually write the question down, and at the end he'll talk about what you should say.
Oh,
now,
wow.
in these avatars is where the suicidal ideation detector is.
Okay.
So it's actually monitoring and listening to you. And it's listening to the words and the combination of words that you're using. And people who are at mental health breaks or in mental health crisis, they make comments. And so let's say I started to talk about depression. It's going to start walking me down why I'm feeling depressed. Then it'll start going into, what are the symptoms that I'm seeing, right? And if I were to say things like, I feel hopeless sometimes. It's going to start working its way towards triggering the SID, the suicidal ideation detector. And when it does trigger, which we have one confirmed save. So we had one veteran, a John, a Marine, who actually sent a testimonial in, and the platform triggered. And what happens is he turns from the avatar purpose to a therapist, and they will actually start to de-escalate you. And they'll say that it's okay to feel like this. This is natural. You're going through some things. And then it'll talk about, do you have anyone around you that could help you? Let's grab somebody. And if there's no one around you, it'll actually coach you on calling the hotline. It'll say things like, Dave, I'm here for you. I will wait while you call. Let's call together.
Nice.
And so this platform, when it changes to that, this is such a huge thing, because for the veteran who, and we'll just name him John, but he got the help that he needed. He went and got his wife and said, this platform's saying that I need to get somebody. And so he kept conversing with him. His wife realized how bad he actually had gotten because the platform drew it out of him. And then they called the hotline together. He ended up getting in counseling, and then he wrote this beautiful testimonial to us.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
That, for me, that made SID and the SID platform, that was all that I wanted to do.
That was well worth it right there. Holy cow. And if someone gets stuck with the platform, is there somewhere in here, is there an avatar that will help guide them, or a number they could call?
Yeah, so Grant will help guide them. There's also a support central on our website.
Okay.
So when you go to our website, you can actually go and there's a contact us box. So if anyone were to get stuck or whatever, you can actually put a ticket in and we can walk you through it.
Awesome,
and we've done that for quite a lot of veterans where, I'd say there's probably about 25 veterans that had a really complex case and they didn't understand some of what the platform was talking about. Okay. And then we actually, through our partnerships with some veteran organizations, we were able to not only get them the answers, but then actually partner them with an organization that could help them that has some VSOs and everything.
Oh, that's incredible. Perfect.
So
and,
I'll stop sharing
and basically for people to sign up, go to vetmentorai.com. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you go to vetmentorai.com. It's going to ask you some basic information, your name, your military branch, your zip code, and everything. That's so that we know where all our veterans are across the United States. And then it's pretty easy to sign up. And then you got your choice of either a $19.99 a month, if you want to go the monthly subscription, or the $149 plan, which is an all-inclusive plan, and you can do everything on that plan.
It's like a no-brainer because, like I said, I just saw $500 yesterday for the Nexus letter. So it's like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And for people to get a hold of you on LinkedIn, basically?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the easiest thing. We also, Vet Mentor AI has a YouTube channel where we publish free information about veteran benefits, about veteran disability benefits, where we're trying to educate the veterans. Perfect. So we do that. And then there's also a founders series where I'm actually on there teaching about specific disabilities. So we just did one about tinnitus where I teach you everything you probably ever want to know and some stuff you don't want to know about tinnitus.
All right, perfect. A couple of last questions before we wrapped up. Has faith contributed to your success at all?
My faith in people.
Okay.
And perfect. So my faith in that there is a better way to do things.
Okay.
And, I believe that by helping people, that is probably the best way to impact the world, right? They always say it, and it's kind of cliche that maybe one person can't change the world. I think one person can change the world. I think one person can start a ripple effect. It's almost everything in life is like throwing a rock into the water. It creates these ripples. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to disrupt the entire way that veterans get their service, their benefits, their, everything, and give them a way that makes them more powerful than any claim shark or attorney.
Yeah, I love it. I love the portion where you're able to save a lot of time, right? And if you're, instead of having to wait for that appointments, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
So if you were 20 years old today, And what advice would you give yourself or someone else just starting on what to do and how to succeed?
Start sooner. When I was 20 years old, I wasn't focused on,
Yeah.
I wasn't focused on trying. I
Right.
thought, I'm never going to be able to do that. It's out of my wheelhouse. Right. And I can't tell you how many times, even when I was 30, that I was like, I don't know how to do that. And then one day it clicked and it said, if I don't know how to do that, I'm going to learn how to do that. And then everything changed. And that is the biggest thing that I could say. If I could say anything to your audience, every day I focus on a routine of learning one new thing.
Yep.
Right. And that is every day. And when I was writing my books, I wrote them 10 pages a day. Every day I wrote 10 pages. Some days I threw them out because they were junk.
Right.
But every day I did one new thing or learned one new thing or wrote 10 pages in my book. So, I would say get yourself a routine of learning and you'll always pay yourself back on that.
And what do you recommend people do for learning? Books?
Yeah, anything
Videos?
that works for you. So for some of the older generation, reading works. But the newer generation, it's videos, right? And so it honestly doesn't matter. I learned how to code using YouTube videos, using AI, using books. I used it all, right? But some things, like certain parts of the training, only videos made sense because I had to see somebody do it.
Right. You had to see the application, right?
Yeah, versus other ways I had to read how to do it, right? And so what I would suggest to anybody is, it doesn't matter. If you're learning, there is no bad way, right? And if you get 1% smarter every single day at the end of the year, think about where you'll be.
Right,
You'll
exactly.
transform your life in 5 years.
Right, yeah. What was one of your favorite books, speaking about books?
Leaders Eat Last. So I really like Simon Sinek because of the military connection and everything. But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite. I have to shamelessly say that the book that I wrote, that Error-Proofing Human, I changed an aerospace business with that. I have changed, the way that I do business now. Part of what I did in the platform was how I error-proofed it so for veterans, and made the AI error-proof, right? And so and I learned all that by learning one new thing a day.
That's amazing. And is your book available on Amazon?
Yeah, all of my books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
You just have to put my name in at pretty much any site.
Perfect. I'm gonna get that one you just mentioned. So I'm always trying to learn as well. So it's a constant battle every day, right?
Yep.
What's one key takeaway you'd like our audience to remember about you or your work?
I think it's that when you see something wrong, do something about it.
Right.
And sometimes the greatest inventions, the greatest innovations come from your own pain. So if you're sitting there thinking, this is horrible, I wish I didn't have to do this, try to come up with a way that no one has to do this.
There you go.
Right. And so that's what I did with the platform. It was so horrible getting my disability benefits that I literally created a platform so no other veteran has to go through that pain. That's the biggest thing. I wasn't a success. I was a Marine who wasn't focused on life goals, right? I changed because I learned, and that's the biggest thing. Where you are right now is not where you have to be in the next 5 years. It's up to you. What are you going to do different? I posted a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn, what are you doing to change the world, right? And when you really think about that, what are you doing to change the world? And if it's nothing, and you're happy with that, then okay. But if you're not happy with that, do something then.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it's always great if you can do something, right? Especially if you're trying to grow, stretch yourself, like you were saying, learn every day and try to make something change. And there's so many stories about entrepreneurs, CEOs that saw a pain point, and they were able to resolve that pain point, and they were really, really successful. So not only are you helping others, you can help yourself financially as well, which I think is incredible.
100%.
Perfect. Anything else before we wrap up, Paul?
No, sir, it's been an absolute pleasure with this. I really enjoy it. And to all of your audience, thank you for the time listening to me for the last
No, it's
hour.
incredible. I think it's a great value. I mean, you saved life, you're saving people time and pain. I would have known about this a year ago, but I want to get this out to everyone that needs it, right? It's been an absolute honor to have you on today. Thank you for sharing about your incredible journey and wisdom with us. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Attention Now podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review, and just share this with as many people as you can to get the word out. Paul's available. I'm available if you have any questions. And thank you so much, Paul. Good talking to you.
Thank you, Dave.